You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Brad, Lisa, Brian, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Joining us is Brian Young, the Turtle Dork.
Happy Friday, folks.
And also joining us is Lisa Gullickson, Wife Dork.
Hello.
And Brad Gullickson, Mouth Dork.
Be aggressive. Be aggressive.
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork. And welcome to the It Modcast podcast, Fistful Friday.
I can't clap on cue. Or tune. Or on the beat. Or the lingo.
Is that what you were doing?
Yes.
Or attempting, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Happy Friday, everyone. TGIFF.
Wow, wow,
Wow. We just got back from our screening of Hereditary, and Brian just got out of his coma. Fear coma.
Yes.
So many spiders. We didn't see that coming.
Oh, no.
Oh, God.
It's a spider movie.
That's a movie. Is it?
No.
I mean,
We don't know. We haven't seen it yet for real.
Yeah, I didn't plan on seeing that movie anyway, so.
Yeah, it looks too scary for me and Brian.
Yeah.
We're going to go see something else. We're going to watch, we're going to go ahead and watch Won't You Be My Neighbor again. We're into feeling soft and fuzzy. Thank you very much.
Well, Darren and I will watch Hereditary and let you know.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right.
If any of our phobias are in there, either or both.
V or spider related.
V or spiders. V or S.
At this point in the year, we're about at the halfway point. So what we typically like to do is take a look back at the year so far. So that's what our Fistful is for today. We've got a Fistful of the year so far. So, Brian, would you be so kind as to start us off with your number 5 movie of 2018 so far?
Well, I was kind of struggling with my number 5, but actually right before we got on air, I think it was either you or Brad mentioned something from Lost Weekend that is one of my favorite movies of the year, but I didn't have it in my top 5 at the moment before you said it. But that would be Borg McEnroe. That's a movie that I really, really enjoyed, specifically the performances, especially by oh goodness, LaBeouf, Shia.
The LaBeouf.
couldn't think of his name for a minute. But yeah, I enjoyed his performance. I enjoyed seeing these two. It feels like character. I mean, this to be based on true events, but to really kind of go behind the scenes of the matches and learn about everything about these characters leading up to the match, I thought was really, really compelling. And to see this rivalry between these two athletes and how that kind of birthed the relationship, this long-lasting friendship that these two had after the Wimbledon Championship in 1980. I thought it was just magnificent the way they were just really able to tell this story. I guess the one downside that we talked about this at Lost Weekend is that I don't think directors have really cracked the code as far as being able to film tennis in a very exciting way to make it as thrilling as other sports have been portrayed cinematically, whether it be baseball, boxing, basketball, football. Tennis hasn't. Can't think of any other tennis movies, but even outside of that, I still find myself being really, really engaged in this story for Borg McEnroe.
Okay. Wife Dork, your number 5.
My number 5 is the horror thriller A Quiet Place.
Yay.
I really enjoyed this movie. I liked the conversation that it created around these monsters who could find you just by sound alone. I loved getting to know this family and seeing how they could survive. And I really liked how it was a meditation on the lengths parents go to create a normal life for their child, to sit and have dinners together, to play games together. So I really enjoyed.
And just straight up great creature work.
Hell yeah.
All right, Brad, your number 5.
My number 5 is the Paul Schrader, Ethan Hawke film First Reformed. I caught this a couple weeks back. We talked about it on our Weekend Dork. I loved this movie. It's certainly a return to form for Schrader. He's taking another look at his God's lonely man archetype that he first tackled in Taxi Driver. He would return to in American Gigolo and Light Sleeper and The Walker. And this time it's Ethan Hawke as this Protestant priest in the grips of despair, and how conversations with another individual, Amanda Seyfried's husband, who's also in grips of despair, and through their chats he finds purpose again. And it's not the type of purpose that results in an uplifting narrative. It's a very punishing movie, but totally gripping. And I just was hooked early on, and First Reform just did not let go. And I was so excited to see Paul Schrader operating at the top of his game once again. And yeah, it's a thrilling movie. It's a punishing movie, and it's a movie that I cannot let go. And I think it's will be hard for any audience member to forget what goes down in First Reformed.
Okay. My number 5 is
so many choices.
I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. All right.
Oh, you're dropping bombs tonight.
All right. I'm gonna do it instead of donating it. All right. My number 5 is. Okay, my number 5 is Isle of Dogs.
Okay.
Nice.
Wes Anderson's latest film, stop motion, a film that I got to see with my daughter, and a film that we reviewed here on the podcast. And I was at that time, and even still, have conflicting feelings about the film, but the artistry on display, the technical aspect of the film. Kuma, what are you doing? Sorry. The artistry on display and the technical aspects are just astounding, and just all the detail and the care that was put into the world is something that I find remarkable, and I like the story, and I like the performances. Now I have my issues with it, but those are the things that I like about it. So. And I'm looking forward to actually watching it like on home video, like in 4K, just to see just more detail. So yeah, that's my number 5. Brian, your number 4.
So my number 4 was a pleasant surprise for me back in February, and this is a film I thoroughly enjoyed. That was Game Night. Game Night, to me right now, is still my favorite comedy so far this year. And I loved what these directors were able to bring to a comedic film aesthetically, with their filmmaking techniques and visual style. I thought Jason Bateman and Kyle Chandler and Rachel McAdams, I thought all of them were great. I think what's his name, Jesse Plemons, steals the movie. I just thoroughly enjoyed this film from beginning to end, and I just thought it was hilarious. I loved a lot of the the movie references, especially when you're dealing with the game. It feels like, especially from the directors, they definitely understand geek culture and are definitely geeks themselves, and seeing a lot of references to movies like Pulp Fiction and other things is just it's a lot of fun to watch. And I'm looking forward to picking this up on Blu-ray and actually rewatching this. I definitely recommend this movie to people if they haven't seen it. So Game Night is my number 4.
And it's a gorgeous looking movie. Like, it's a well shot film.
Absolutely.
All right, Wife Dork, your number 4.
My number 4 is a Marvel movie. It is Black Panther, a real record breaker in the books, and just a real beautiful cultural moment. And I think everybody loves this movie.
That
Number
came
4
out this year?
Yeah, I know. It's already on Blu-ray. We have it at our house. We can watch it whenever we want.
Number 4, Lisa.
I really like Paddington too.
Spoilers.
All right. Damn. All right. Brad, your number 4.
My number 4 is The Death of Stalin.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
technically, we saw this at Fantastic Fest last year, but its official release is 2018, and I actually got to see it a couple times at the Draft House in March, I want to say. It was part of Lost Weekend, and then they've screened it a couple times since then. And this was a movie where, at Fantastic Fest, I liked it. It was the secret screening, but I didn't love it. Then we saw it at Lost Weekend, and my brain and its personality clicked. And it's such a dementedly dark movie that is having too much fun with atrocity, but my sick little head eats it up. And you know, it's the type of film that jokes are punctuated by people being dragged down corridors and shot in the skull. So I've seen some people react to this in appalling nature, and I understand that if it just really, you're like, look, Stalin, communism, it's not something to laugh about, and yeah, sure, okay. But to me, it's like Dr. Strangelove. The humor accentuates the horror, and it eases you into the thought of what was going on at that time, and also maybe what we're seeing happening right now behind our own borders. So yeah. I think Death of Stalin is a tremendously entertaining movie and a thoughtful one as well.
Okay. My number 4 is Deadpool 2. I had a blast with this movie. It's a movie that I've been meaning to go back to the theater and watch. Use my movie pass and go watch it again because I just want to see it. We just had a recent review cast on that, so for my full thoughts and for our full thoughts, please go check it out. But just know that I really dug it. I enjoy Ryan Reynolds as the character. I enjoy Zazie Beetz as Domino. Josh Brolin is a lot of fun as Cable, and I like the action in it. And most of the comedy works for me. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with that movie every time I watched it in the theater. And
I'm really curious what Drew Goddard's going to do with the X-Force film. Like, what's the tone of that going to be? Is it going to be like the first 2 Deadpools, or is it going to shift a little bit? I don't know.
Didn't he have something to do with Cabin in the Woods? Didn't he write that?
Yeah, he directed. Yeah, he wrote it, and he directed it. I think he co-wrote it with Joss Whedon.
Okay.
Cabin in the Woods. Yeah, he co-wrote it with Joss Whedon and directed that movie.
Well, because that movie has you're mixing like different tones, like comedy,
right,
and horror, and stuff like that. So, and I think that's an entertaining film, and I think they were able to do that successfully. So, I think with like Deadpool, with like, you know, his comedy mixing that with like violence or action or whatever X-Force is supposed to be, I think well, my hope is that his experience mixing, two different tones, hopefully it pays off in X-Force.
As long as Peter comes back.
He's great. He's one of my favorite characters. But yeah, that's my number 4. Deadpool 2. Brian, your number 3.
So my number 3 is a movie we saw about a month ago. That's Avengers: Infinity War. This is the culmination of the MCU. We've talked about it before. We did a lead up, watching all the previous Marvel films, building up to this moment, this monumental moment. And I think the Russo brothers definitely knocked this one out of the park. Of course, with all big movies, tentpole movies, there's always going to be a divide amongst the fan base as far as what they like and don't like. But ultimately, I think with what they had to do, really taking 10 years of the MCU and bring everything together to tell a cohesive story, to tell an emotional story, and to tell a story that's going to continue in this final part that's going to conclude this chapter of the MCU. I thought it was just perfectly done, bringing able to pull all these pieces together. It's just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Of course, are there characters that did get sidelined? Yes, and there have been interviews with Marcus and McFeely who said any characters that didn't get a lot of screen time will definitely, you'll see them definitely get a lot more screen time and have a bigger presence and a bigger arc in the 4th film, i.e. Captain America, Black Widow. So these Marvel and their team definitely know what they're doing. Again, we have to wait until we see everything so we can see the full, complete arc of this story. But what they gave us with Infinity War, I thought was just absolutely damn near close to perfection.
In MCU, I trust.
Absolutely.
Amen.
All right. Wife Dork, your number 4.
3.
My number 3, my number 4 was Black Panther. We were all there. I spoke at great length about how beautiful it is. I'm not at all tired. My number 3 though is a number 2. It is Paddington 2, which it's a movie about a bear being nice.
Yeah.
It was my dad's 74th birthday yesterday, and we had the 2 youngest nieces there, Bonnie and June. June is 3.5. Bonnie is 2. And Bonnie didn't give any fucks for Paddington 2.
Oh, okay.
But June, the more sophisticated of the 2, being almost twice as old as Bonnie, she enjoyed it a lot. And I think, to me, I like the fact that Paddington 2 takes the themes of Paddington 1 even further. It takes the adventures of Paddington 1 even further. It, like every great sequel, it transcends and elevates the original film, and I just love how the Paddington world has expanded. And I think the message of the film of just being kind and polite and caring for others first is the kind of message we need, the kind of message that I need to be a less selfish bear.
Yeah.
So spoilers for my list, but Paddington 2 is not on it.
What?
And I am surprised by this because when I came out of the theater, I gave it 5 stars. However, since January, I have thought about this film 0. Unlike the first Paddington, which stuck with me, this one, for whatever reason, has drifted from my brain. So I think it's time for me
rewatch.
To do a rewatch,
Yeah.
is what I was saying.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm going to interrupt you to finish what you were
Good.
saying, because this is my time on the cast.
That is true, but I like to talk during everybody's time. We know that. I'm Brad.
Yeah, so that's my number 3, Paddington 2.
All right. Brad, your number 3.
My number 3 is the Lynn Ramsey movie You Were Never Really Here, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Another film that we first saw at Lost Weekend. I had the opportunity to host it for Film Club several weeks later. And this is just an amazing bit of filmmaking. It's 90 minutes long. It's withholding so much information. It drops you into the plot. You're like, who's this Joaquin Phoenix character? Why is he bashing people on the head with a ball-peen hammer? Oh, okay, he's here to save little girls, maybe. What the hell happened to him in his youth? What's his relationship with his mother? How is he going to take down this crime syndicate and these evil governors? And it's just like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, movie making. And I loved every second of it. Utterly brutal, not for the faint of heart, but it's one of Joaquin's finest performances, and I think it is absolutely must-see TV.
I think the term, like the idiom "wham bam, thank you, ma'am," needs to be retired.
No,
because
I like it.
Do you know the origins of that? Just Google it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm sure. It's not. No, it's not nice.
Google it.
Okay. I'm gonna go to Google it while it's Darren's turn to talk.
You should not wham and bam your ma'am.
Is it my mom? Am I wham-bamming my mom?
No, it's I don't know who the ma'am is.
Okay. I mean, I like to wham-bam sometimes. Darren, it's your turn.
All right. My number 3 is Pacific Rim Uprising. I had fun with this one in the theaters this summer. Wait, was this in the summer or is like in spring?
March.
So in the winter, I guess, whatever you call that middle period. Yeah, I enjoyed this film.
March.
I liked it better than the first film. I've been dying to rewatch it on home video, in 4K. The disc when it comes out is going to it'll be the first disc with a 4K 3D disc in it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing 3D in that resolution. So I've just been excited to rewatch it. So that's why it's my number 3, because I've been thinking about it. And it's got a great art of book. Both of those films, both Pacific Rim 1 and 2, have a great art of book and a lot of cool insight into stuff that was in the film and stuff that didn't make it to the film. But yeah, that's my number 3. Brian, your number 2.
Okay, we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. So my 1 and 2 have been flip flopping ever since I was coming up with this list, and it's probably going to continue to do that as we talk about a lot of these lists are very fluid. So it could change tomorrow, definitely by the end of this year when we actually do our top 10s of 2018. But as of right now, my number 2 is Black Panther.
What?
Yeah, I know. Shocking, isn't it?
It is surprising.
Like I said, I struggled with this one for myself, but
oh man.
But Black Panther, like, what can we say that we haven't already said about this film? Like Lisa said, it was a cultural moment this year that we've seen in film. What this film has been able to do, box office wise, in U.S. and across the world, and how it's been resonating with people. The storytelling that's being done in this film, outside of it just being a Marvel film, being a story about the nation of Wakanda and how these story elements relate to a lot of some of our own world politics that's going on right now. I thought Ryan Coogler did a phenomenal job at being able to kind of straddle the line in telling basically a Marvel story and being very political and socially aware with a lot of different things going on in the world, and being able to tell that in this movie without it being heavy-handed. The fact that we get characters like Shuri and the Dora Milaje and Nakia in this movie to show strong women, strong black women, in a way that we haven't really seen on screen before. There's just so much that I love about this film. I mean, and then you get into the villain, the character of Killmonger, and understanding his angle in this story, and it not being such a black and white story as far as like his motivation. And it makes you question a lot of different things as far as like where you fall on the line as far as like what is the responsibility of Wakanda to the rest of the world. It's just such a a phenomenal film, and it's a movie that I'm definitely going to revisit just to watch again, outside of it just being an MCU film. And I mean, I hate to have to say that, but I know a lot of times we look at Marvel films and we just kind of lump them in as just these comic book films or these MCU films. But I think, and not just Black Panther, but all these films, I think, have a lot to say within the context of the greater film community. So yeah, Black Panther is my number 2.
Now, Brian, you putting Black Panther as your number 2, that means you, like, depending on what your number 1 movie is, I guess. I mean, you could really surprise me.
I know. Maybe I'm regretting, especially after how I just spoke about it. Maybe I'm regretting.
You'll have to redo your entire MCU list drastically.
No, well, my MCU list it's number 1. It's my favorite MCU film.
Yeah, so you have no idea what his number 1 film is.
I have no idea.
Brad.
Interesting.
See what happens when you assume.
Oh,
And I put Avengers was Infinity War was number 3, so you know.
Was it?
Yeah.
All right.
You gotta focus.
I'm losing my mind. I'm making assumptions here. I have no idea what Brian's number 1 is.
I'm excited. Stay tuned. Brad, keep listening.
Obviously, I've been too distracted.
Before we get to Brian's number 1, we got to get to Lisa's number 2.
What?
Your number 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, speaking of distracted, lady.
My number 2, I Love Dogs.
Yeah.
Wes Anderson's movie. Darren's already talked about it. I really enjoyed this film. Like, in terms of artistry, I think that Wes Anderson and his films have taken stop motion animation to the next level. I think it's a really creative story, funny, great performances, and just for me, like, a good twisted kids film. Like, how many kids films can you see surgery and dogs with staples in their head and stuff and death and stuff?
Many.
My number 2.
All right, B, your number 2.
Well, my number 2 is Avengers Infinity War. And obviously, I echo everything Brian said about it when it was his number 3.
Not that you were
Like, blanked on that. Yeah, I mean, I've watched this movie more times than any other in the theater this year. I've seen it 7 times. It's a film that I keep getting drawn back to witnessing because I really just cannot believe it. You know, as Brian said, they pack so much in, and yes, not everybody gets the same amount of screen time, but that's how it's going to go. Yeah. But the screen time that they do get is successful. I don't think any character that we see on screen is betrayed in their moments, whether that's Idris Elba's Heimdall, or Tom Hiddleston's Loki, or Captain America, or Tony Stark, or really Thanos, because at the end of the day, that's what this film belongs to. It belongs to Thanos. Yeah. And they've been building to his story for so long, and there's been so much doubt and concern if they were going to be able to make us care about Thanos the way that we care about the Vulture or Killmonger or the better MCU villains, and they pulled it off. I mean, Roland is a full fleshed out creature with wants and desires and failures, and the way this film ends with that character is just so satisfying for not only fans of the comic book version of Thanos, but of the fan who just walked in and met this guy sitting in a chair one day. So Avengers Infinity War. It's great.
All right.
Bless you, Darren. Huh? My blessings on your house. Mazel tov, mazel tov. You sneezed.
You. My number 2 is a film we just talked about on this most recent Week in Dork, and that's Lee Wanell's Upgrade. It's a film that I was looking forward to. It was like my most anticipated of the summer. And if you have not listened to that Week in Dork episode, spoiler, it delivered. I enjoyed the cast. I enjoyed the way the film was shot. I enjoyed Logan Marshall Green. Is that his name? Logan Marshall Green?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I enjoyed his performance and him selling these two distinct personalities in sharing one host body. And the violence in it was nuts, and it was everything that I look forward to when I go watch a movie like this. And the ending floored me. It was genuinely surprising to me, and I'm just at the end of this film, like, I'm looking forward to Lee Wanell and what he does outside of straight up horror movies, even if it's something in the science fiction realm where he infuses certain horror elements, i.e. the gory and graphic kills in this film. But I think, like, as a director, he definitely has a style that I find interesting and I'm curious to check out more of. So yeah, that's my number 2. Brian, your number 1.
So my number 1, as Brad has been anticipating.
What is it?
Again, I struggle back and forth between this and Black Panther, and I said this could change tomorrow or at any time. But right now, my favorite film of this year is A Quiet Place.
Wow. What?
That's
Such a Brian movie, even with the horror elements. I'll let Brian tell you about it, but I see this being Brian's number 1 film of right now, of this second.
Yeah, it just grabs me emotionally due to, again, the family dynamic, and then just the way John Krasinski directs this film from the opening, that cold opening, that really sets up the plot of the story and sets up that family dynamic. And like you were saying, Lisa, this movie asks a lot of questions, and it demands a lot from its audience. I've never seen a film that has basically forced an audience to be quiet, to stay quiet through the course of the film. And I think that's just a tremendous job by John Krasinski to really establish that in the beginning, to really know what you're in for with this film. And then just outside of the setup and just what the premise of this story, which I think is just an absolutely fantastic premise to have a story around. Again, what the actors were able to do, Emily Blunt, John Krasinski, the kids in this story, like you were saying, Brad, the creature design, everything, the aesthetic of the creatures and how the creatures work as far as being able to hear sound, how they set up the world as far as being able to make create a world that they can live in and still be able to remain silent in this world. I just thought it was just absolutely phenomenal. And then just the emotional impact. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen this film, but that moment when Krasinski has to sacrifice himself for his daughter, as of right now, that is my favorite scene in cinema this year in 2018. That scene still gets me to this moment as far as developing that relationship and him finally telling his daughter, I love you. I've always loved you. With her not really knowing how her father felt about her. It just gets me every time. And to be able to have a genre film that affects me in that way, that's just perfect filmmaking to me. I absolutely love that film.
All right. Lisa, your number 1.
My number 1 is Avengers Infinity War. It is also the movie that I've seen the most in the theater. I don't know how many times. I think maybe 6 times, maybe 7 times. But what amazes me is that Marvel, in staying true to its characters, still manages to surprise us. Like, watching my first watch, I was so emotionally devastated. Like, I was just in a daze affected by that film. And every time I've watched it, I've found some kind of new and interesting element. And I find myself really meditating on who these characters have become to me as an audience member, what they've become to each other as, like, this tremendous growing ensemble. I just, you can't ignore what an amazing accomplishment the Marvel Studios is. So that's why it's my number one. So far. Who knows? Maybe Paddington 2 will bounce its way up there in my heart.
All right. Brad, your number one film of 2018 so far.
My number one is Black Panther.
All right.
And if that changes, I will be amazed. I don't know what's going to happen, between 4 or 5 through 2. Those could flip back and forth, but Black Panther is without a doubt my favorite film of the year, and will most likely be my favorite film in 6 months when we put our dorkies together. We've talked a lot about this movie on this podcast. Please go back and listen to our review cast. Go back and listen to our Marvel Phases review cast as well. What I would say is Black Panther, obviously it's a cultural phenomenon. I felt like when we showed up that weekend to see that movie, it was something akin to the experience people had in 1977 when they saw Star Wars.
Yeah.
Lines around the block. I'll never forget that lady saying, like, why is the line so long? And I just said, like, lady, it's Black Panther. It's like, yeah, but why? I'm like, because everyone wants to see this movie, including you. And how at the end of the day, the film operates as an education for T'Challa and the audience. But like how every character in that film, every side character, and it's why people go like, oh, T'Challa's not as interesting as Nakia or Okoye or Killmonger, because T'Challa is learning from all of them. And he is learning how his country, his father, the kings before him, have operated in one way, and that way has caused great pain across the globe. And he is going to try to correct that. And, whether he's successful in that going forward I'm really curious about. I can't wait for Black Panther 2 if things change in Avengers Infinity War, of course, because that's a big game changer for Wakanda unto itself.
Yeah.
But emotionally, there is no Marvel film, and I would say there are few action adventure films that are as emotionally rich as this one. And the pain you feel for Eric is as profound as any other emotional experience you're having with any other character in Black Panther.
Absolutely.
And it leaves you feeling spent. When Black Panther's credits come up, it's not like a high five movie, and actually, none of the past Marvel movies high five. Even Thor Ragnarok, you're like, those Asgardians, they're doomed. Marvel is really dragging their characters through the muck right now, and hopefully we'll get some levity by the end of Avengers 4. But who knows? And like, what a thrill ride these last 10 years have been. It's unlike anything else cinematically we've experienced. And both Black Panther and Infinity War have perfectly replicated the comic shop buying and obsessing world, and it's truly special.
All right. And my number one movie of 2018 so far is Ready Player One.
Your list is insane, Darren. Could not pick a single one. I had no idea the entire time. What's Darren going to say next?
And you know what? This my whole list. It's not even like. It's not even about like, do I think this is the best movie of the year? It's just the one that I had the most fun with in theaters. Because I saw Infinity War 7 times. I only saw Ready Player One 3 times. Avengers is the movie I've seen the most in theaters this year as well. But it's the movie I've been thinking about the most. Like, and it's just random passing thoughts, and they just put a smile on my face. Like, just remembering how I felt in the theater, just remembering or just thinking about how cool it is just to see some of the shit that's in this film. I don't know. It genuinely, it still makes me happy. I am dying for the Blu-ray to come out because
July 24th.
Yeah, I just want to be able to watch it, freeze frame it if I have to, or just revisit it whenever I have the inclination to, because it's a movie that I had the most fun with in the theater this year, and I mean just singular fun, not even like taking into account like how the audience was receiving everything, like just looking back inward to myself and that enjoyment. Like I don't know, it's the one that spoke to me the most. Like from the littlest Darren, who the first movie he saw in the movie theater was Superman 2, 41-year-old disco dork. Like that, it put all that into perspective. It put what I used to love when I was a kid. How my interest has changed, how some of it stayed the same. Like all this crazy shit. Like it just I think about like when I feel, not even think about. I feel when in regards to Ready Player One. So yeah, that's my number one. Yeah, so hit us up on social media. Let us know what your top 5 films of 2018 so far. I tell you what,
actually, we've had a bunch of people throw suggestions to us on our social media, and I think we should do a few shout outs to our listeners, our loyal listeners here. So and it's interesting, like amongst us, we've had a very wide range of cinema, and it's the same deal online too. So let's see here. Let me scroll. I should have had this keyed up a little while ago, but I didn't. All right. So, I mean, I guess we can start with Kern, who's at Kern Cetra on Twitter.
Yay! And this can't possibly be our inaugural Kern mention.
No. Kern's been we've talked about Kern several times on this podcast. And he wants to go by the name Obscure Dork going forward, because he picked for his 2 favorite films of the year so far, Lean on Pete and Madeline's Madeline. Anybody?
Lean on Pete is one of the horse ones.
I don't know. I think so. Yeah.
I don't know the Madeline's Madeline.
Yeah.
Is it about Fluffy Cookie?
I have no idea. I've seen posters, I think, but we failed. We failed at watching these indies, and Kern right now is certainly disgusted by all the Marvel talk on this episode. Rick Humphreys, who is at RHENRY Humphreys on Twitter, he went, there's only one answer: Hurricane Heist. Becca Grawl and Julie Bulger agree. That's at Becca Grawl and at Bulger Julie on Twitter. They both agree that Paddington 2 is the only answer
I thought
to
you were
this.
going to say they both agree that Hurricane Heist was. I was like, wait a minute. I don't want to have to cut these 2 people off. I really like them.
Ryan B at the Chew Defense on Twitter. He picked Annihilation, and none of us had it on our list.
It was on my short list.
It was on my short list as well.
I forgot that came out this year. Okay.
At Wesley Clapp _ agrees with me that You Were Never Really Here is one of the best films of the year.
Shout out to Wesley. Yeah. Thank you.
And then at Jason W720, he says, it has to be Avengers Infinity War so far. Nice. So we've got a few like-minded folks, but then some other people who are probably mad at us right now. Oh. And, hey, art's subjective. Look at Darren's list. Who knew?
I know.
Thank you, everyone who hit us up and dropped in your picks. And for everyone else who didn't, still hit us up at ItModcast on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Brian is at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. The lovely wife Dork is at Bake Dork on Twitter. And Lisa, when is the next? When I'm getting some scones or something? What's next?
Well, on the Bake Dork blog this week is my tiramisu terrible 2 baking experience. The the tiramisu is long gone and but I was having migraine issues, so I was not able to get my post up. But in the meantime, you can head to aftermoviediner.com and read my almost 1,400 words I wrote on Secret Agent 00 Soul.
Oh.
That's a movie that does not disappoint, and hopefully my long ass essay about it also does not disappoint. It's a celebration of how awful and wonderful that film is.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Film is generous. Movie. It was shot on VHS.
So check that out, ladies and gentlemen. You can also find her at Sidewalk Siren on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Letterboxd. And Brad Gullickson is at Mouth Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, Untapped. And I'm Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, on all social medias. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Go see Ocean's 8, Hereditary, and what else?
Is that going to be our review cast? Is Ocean 8 going to be our review cast?
Yeah, I think so.
It can't be Hereditary because Brian and I are not going to see it right away.
Okay.
What
if
about
ever.
Hotel Artemis? No Hotel Artemis, love?
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's going to be playing anywhere.
All right, let's go Ocean's 8.
Ocean's
8.
All right, everybody. That's going to do it for us. You heard it, Ocean's 8. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Like, stop licking me. And until next time.